Guys, what is going on? Memento here, or Perseverant, that's my in-game name, and welcome to Valkyr Prime. Now I know her Prime Access was dropped a few days ago, so I am behind on covering her. However, RNG was relentless, but after a lot of tears and cussing, I finally managed to get my beloved Cat Queen all to myself. And was it worth it? Well, I am sick, and I was sick over the holiday weekend, but yeah, I would say it's worth it, because Fashion Frame is the true endgame, and she dominates Fashion Frame with ease. She has cat ears and a crown. I mean, how could you beat that? Well, I mean, she does have a gilded nose ring as well, which is a little bit odd, but we can look past that because she has Untitled Prime, which is like a primed variant of her binds, and they look 1,000 times better in my opinion, and everybody can obtain them. If you craft Valkyr Prime through the Foundry, you can get them, or if you buy her Prime Access, you can get them. I just didn't want to dose out the serious amount of shekel to get it. But if you do decide to dose out that shekel, you do get some plat, you do get her icons if you choose to go for the upper tiers, and if you decide to go all out, you can also get her Prime accessories, which in my opinion aren't 100% worth it. That's why I'm kind of glad that they gave the Untitled Prime to everybody instead of adding it to the Prime accessories, because in my opinion it wasn't worth it. But hey, some people might think it is, and to each their own. So, if you want to follow me down the trail of tiers that I have laid out in order to get her through farming, I will leave a link in the description to the Reddit post I used that basically had all the drops, the relics that you needed to get all the drops, and I'll say them out loud, and I'll put some possible farming suggestions up. But to get her blueprint, you need to go to Meso S3. It's common, however, I still recommend that you go into a relic share for that, even if it's a common one, because you don't really feel like messing up and having to farm for a second relic, right? Yeah, I thought so. Next up is the Neuro Optics, or the helmet. Meso C2, uncommon, so I would recommend a Radiant those relics, even though you may decide to go Flawless. It's up to you. I went Radiant because I wanted to go Radiant. For her systems, Meso B3, and those are rare, so yeah, definitely go Radiant for those. And for her chassis, Axe V5, and that's also rare. Now, I know a lot of people had a lot of trouble getting the chassis. I know I did. I had to go through 5 Radiant relics before I got one to drop in a rad share, so I don't know if it's weighed against getting the chassis, but it certainly feels like it was. Now, for the Meso relics, I recommend farming Io Jupiter or Helen Saturn, because those are pretty much the easiest. You can solo them with Ember, or you can go into a group and do it more efficiently that way. However, less mobs spawn if you go solo, so I recommend solo. That's how I farmed mine. For the Axie relics, you can go to Zinni, which is on Eris, I believe, or you can go to Heracron on Pluto. I went Heracron because it's more fun in my opinion. I hate interception, and the Zinni tile set is my most hated tile set in the game right now, behind the Barahinia one, the new affinity farm. But yeah, so I decided to go Heracron. You can get some Cryotic and some Endo, some credits, some things you'll need throughout the game, later on. So that was nice. Now, is she worth it in terms of her stats and her upgrades? Now, I used to think that Valkyr Prime would be OP, because back then Hysteria was, infinite. You can go and build for an infinite Hysteria build, but now you really can't. And the buff to her armor wasn't really that huge. I thought it would be bigger, but I'm kind of glad it wasn't, because it probably would be kind of OP if it was any more than what they did. So they gave 100 extra base armor on top of the regular variant, so the Prime variant has 700 armor, and that's pretty decent. With a max steel fiber, the original can go up to 1260, the Prime variant can go up to 1440, so it's pretty nice, and she definitely can take advantage of it with her high health pool, and if you toss a Vitality on it, on top of the steel fiber, you're good to go. The thing to take away though, from her buff to her Prime variant, is that extra 50 energy to her energy pool. That allows for a longer, Hysteria, that allows for just more duration on every ability, which is pretty nice, especially the Hysteria. Now, the way I built my Valkyr was for Eternal War, and I decided to go for more of a support playstyle with it. I wanted to figure out a way to make Valkyr viable in big group missions. And it's not the easiest thing to do. She's not really a team player frame. She's more of a solo frame, at least in my opinion, but I think this is pretty close to being a support frame. Basically just giving war cry to everybody and keeping it up with your Eternal War. It's not the easiest though when you're in a group, because everyone's killing your targets that you need to do. So you better go off on, again, you have to go off on your own and find a nice group of enemies that spawn and just kill them to keep it up. But the neat thing is that her war cry actually affects the cryopod. At least the one in the video that I'm showing right now, it affected that cryopod. So I don't know how much it affects it, and I certainly wouldn't take a Valkyr over a Frost. But it's a neat little thing, and on a place like a COD, it's kind of useful because the infested can get right onto that pod, especially if your Vauban is down. So the way I built my Valkyr, I made Steel Fiber and Vitality pretty much mandatory for the most part. You don't need to put them on. I would at least advise the Steel Fiber because of the benefit you get from it. The Vitality, I would say, also is, in my opinion, mandatory. However, you can take it off if you don't want it. Up next, so for my Warcry build, Eternal War, of course, that's the augment mod for it. Then I put on Prime Continuity for the more duration, and Prime Flow. My Prime Continuity and my Prime Flow are only 8 out of 10, 2 from the top, and that's because I'm a little bit stingy with my Endo or my Fusion cores, but that's what they were back then. So if you had yours fully maxed out, you might need to add extra forma to her, and that's why I only added 2 instead of 3 forma to her. Up next, I put Blind Rage on for more, power behind strikes, and Hysteria, and then I put on Streamline, which is to kind of counterbalance some efficiency issues, and then I put on Rage because she is sort of an energy needy frame, and I wanted to find a way to get energy refunded to me without having Arcane Energize. And I don't have the generic tree either for the energy because I didn't complete the second Dreamer War Within, and that's definitely something I need to do. However, I don't have any of that, so Rage is a nice way to take advantage of her health and armor pool as well as gain energy back. But you could replace Rage with Intensify if you wanted to. But I think Rage is good, and Intensify is sort of counterbalanced. You could replace Intensify with Power Drift, which is what I'm doing, to gain a little bit more power, because of course Valkyr doesn't mind having power strength added to her. But for that purpose, I use Rage. So for the second build, I use Prime Continuity, Prime Flow again, 8 out of 10. However, this time I have Transient Fortitude and Narrow Minded out. This is for a Hysteria build, and I think you could probably find an Infinite Hysteria build with Arcane Energize and a combination of the generic tree. You might need to max out, you definitely would want to max out Continuity and Prime Flow. You would probably want to go max out Narrow Minded as well. I'm not entirely sure if you would like to do that. This build can use some definite tweaking, however, I think you can get very, very close to finding an Infinite Hysteria build. The thing you can do here also, I kept Intensify here just for the sake of the video, but I also run Rage in that slot. I just showed that you could, in theory, put on Intensify. However, if you do max out the mods, like Prime Continuity and Flow, you would definitely need a third forma, maybe a fourth, I'm not entirely sure. And I also have Eternal War on my Hysteria build because Eternal War is just so good, and it helps everybody, not just yourself. Although in this build, the range for the Eternal War isn't that great, so you would probably need to tell your teammates to group up by you so they can all get that buff, and you can just continuously keep them armored up and have a faster melee speed. One thing to note, however, is that in her Hysteria, if you're in the Void, she can gain energy from the Death Orbs in Hysteria, which I thought was very neat. However, it's not as, important as it was before, because I really don't go into the Void that much anymore. Before, the Void was the only place I ever was. However, now I only go there for alerts once in a while, or if there's an endless fissure for the void, like inside the void, so I can go into like an endless void survival and get prime parts at the same time. But other than that, that feature, the prime feature, isn't as important anymore. So thought it was worth mentioning. However, it's probably not going to be that important in the long run. But yeah, so that's Valkyr Prime for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I wish everyone luck on farming Valkyr Prime if you are choosing the farm. And I will see you at the end of that Trail of Tears. Until then, see you next time. Yeah.